Today, I'm gonna do a PC build, and we're basing it around this 16 gig RX 9060, and I've also got some cheapest AM5 X3D CPU action. Yeah, I'm pretty curious to see how this thing runs, but before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by Corsair's amazing new Frame 5000D case. The 5000D is literally brimming with features, from its insane front I/O, customizable front airflow panel, top Infinity rails which lets it switch from 120mm fans to 140 to 160mm. You can also switch out different effects for the bottom side mesh panel. It comes with 4 RGB fans. I mean, there's just so much going on in this case. You should probably go check it out using the link down below. The reason why I'm really excited for this build is because it has the potential to be extremely efficient. This little 7600 X3D, for example, might not bring all the cores to the yard with just 6 cores and 12 threads, but it apparently uses very little power while gaming, and considering that it uses X3D-ness, it is a very good gaming chip. And that paired with a 9060, another graphics card which doesn't draw that much power. Its TDP is around 160 watts. So I think the combination of these two should be really good. But with that, let's start assembling them. Now, in terms of motherboard, I'm using this Gigabyte B650 Eagle AX because it was the cheapest AM5 motherboard that was available at the moment. So yeah, hopefully it's fine. Oh, that's a weird M.2 clip implementation. How does it? I mean, my brain is telling me I need to push that down, but it's not. Do I pull? How does that work? Wait, is there a manual? The fact that I have to look at a manual to figure out how that works is an immediate failure of that design. But I am also an idiot, so that I will give it the benefit of the doubt. I feel like they don't need to tell me how to put a power supply in a case. And an optical drive. What is this 2007? Wait, so they show you how to screw an M.2 down, but not how their weird clip works. What? There's no other documentation in here. My gut is telling me that I clip this in place. No, that also doesn't look right. If I look at the mechanism, it looks like there is a thing inserted in there that needs to come out, but it doesn't feel like it wants me pulling on it. I then spent another couple minutes struggling with Gigabyte's terrible attempt to make an M.2 clip that's easier than just screwing the thing down. This is by far the worst implementation of this I've seen. Some of them, you're like, okay, this kind of makes sense. It's just a little thingy that you like flick and it sits in place. What is this? How is this supposed to work? Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna rage quit if I keep struggling with that. I'm just gonna use that one. That still uses a screw, so that's fine. My idiot brain can figure that one out. Now, aside from its built-in IQ test that I clearly failed, this seems like a reasonable motherboard for the price. You just get one M.2 slot, unfortunately, but you get a bunch of PCIe slots. You have some reasonable VRM cooling happening over there. Although the actual power delivery could be junk and they just decorated it nicely. That's very much an option. But either way, it's probably going to be fine. And then aside from that, we also get a built-in rear I/O shield, which the rear I/O very much shows the price point of this motherboard. We've mostly got USB 2 going on here. They've just got one Type-C port and then 2 USB 3 ports, but these are very fast. They're 3.2, so those are solid ports. And you do get Wi-Fi, which is nice. And then in terms of RAM, I'm going to use this 6000 MHz Lexar kit because I have a bunch of these on hand and they tend to be quite compatible with stuff. I never have issues with this RAM. So let's give it a try. Oh yeah, that's another nice touch on this motherboard is that it's got bottom and top open clips. You don't have that side swivel terrible RAM mount that I hate so much. This is good. Then I'm gonna drop this random drive that I found in a pile in my office into the only M.2 slot on this motherboard. Now the cooler that I'm using here is a little bit like using a nuclear reactor to power a small fishing village. It's a bit gratuitous, but the case that I'm using is also a bit gratuitous, and I didn't want it feeling left out. Ooh, such good foam. Okay, well, Corsair clearly knows what's up. There's only 2 captive thumb screws for this power supply. You can obviously add more, but that's only if you're a loser. The next step was to add the motherboard to this Corsair 5000D, but first I wanted to pre-route some of the cables so I could lay the case down flat. When dropping the motherboard in, something terrible did happen. I pinched the fan cable for the rear exhaust fan between the I/O shield and the opening on the back of the case, something I only figured out after I screwed the whole motherboard down, using all 9 screws nonetheless. Next, I needed to remount the cable covers which blocked the motherboard installation the first time. And considering that you have to hold it down on one side of the case and screw it down on the other, this installation process is some primo reach around practice. The radiator mounting was super straightforward. I really like the Infinity rail implementation, and because the 5000D is a little bit deeper of a case, you don't have any clearance issues with the top cables around the motherboard like you often do in smaller ATX cases. There's also plenty of space to prepare all of the front I/O cables, although because the PSU shroud doesn't go all the way to the front of the case, it does feel like you have less stuffing space than with a lot of cases, but at the same time it makes sense because it gives you much better front radiator clearance if you need that. So it's kind of a toss-up between which hole you want bigger. Also, it's got a little magnetic mounting point for the Corsair link hub. So cool. There's another one in the basement. All in all, aside from the surprising amount of reaching around you have to do, this is a very easy case to build in. And then finally, we just have to drop in our graphics card, which is the RX 9060 XT that was sent over by Yeston. And this is actually not a waifu edition of the card. I didn't know Yeston made non-waifu cards, but apparently that's a thing that exists. So let's have a closer look at it. Ooh, you still get the stickers with it. That's very exciting. It doesn't have that nice sakura smell to it though, which is a bit of a disappointment. But we've still got some purpliness going on here. That's exciting. Ooh, that is, I guess, more a habu than a waifu. I like the color. It's this nice pearlescent purple. And then we have a pass-through heatsink. This actually seems like quite a nice heatsink we've got going here. There is a little bit of give to this pearlescent plastic bit, but it's fine. It's not like it has to be weight bearing or whatever. Look at the rear I/O. We just have 1 HDMI and 2 display ports. That's very unusual for a modern graphics card. I'm very used to seeing 4 outputs on the back of a graphics card. But in all fairness, I feel like 3 displays is where most people top out. But if that's something that's an issue for you, do bear that in mind. And then finally, there's our single 8-pin connector. System detects you've installed an X3D, yes, sure. After definitely understanding which X3D setting I enabled there, the system refused to boot off the random M.2 I dropped in the only M.2 slot on the motherboard. I think that random drive I stuck in here may have a little bit of super aids. But after dropping in a new drive, I was ready to do some gaming. Now starting off with CS2 1440p high, and we're getting 350 frames per second here, which is good. This is lots of frame rate. Although interestingly, here, even with our X3D CPU, we're not quite getting 100% utilization on the GPU, and that's at 1440p. That is very interesting. I think we should also try 1080p and see what happens frame rate wise, but it feels really good. Like, the game is running very well. Yeah, stepping down to 1080p gives us the same result. It's a very good result though, so it's not that big a problem because there's a lot of frame rate to go around. So here we've got Cyberpunk running at 1440p Ultra, and we're getting 60-ish frames per second. I mean, I feel like 60 is where it bottoms out, but this is, yeah, oh, never mind. It dipped a bit lower there, which, you know, is fair enough. It is ultra settings at 1440p. I probably wouldn't game at these settings, but it's a pretty good worst case power draw situation for this system. And considering that that's the case, the system is doing pretty well. We're getting about 200 watts between the GPU and the CPU, which is impressive considering the amount of performance we're getting here. That 7600X3D really does sip power. The temperatures are also really good, although I don't know how much that counts. This is a wildly unreasonable cooler to use with the CPU. So here we have Doom: The Dark Ages running at 1440p using FSR native AA. So it is actually rendering at 1440p. And here with high settings, we're getting a similar result to what we were seeing at Ultra with Cyberpunk. This is, I would say, a playable experience. This game doesn't hate low frame rates. You can see that it's pretty stable. Although we do have some little, oh, something's dragging me. Although we do have some little lag spikes happening here, which is a little unusual for this game. But when it comes to lag spikes, this isn't as problematic as it can get. Let's have a look at Tarkov quickly. Now, considering that there's a brand new Tarkov wipe happening, I had to play a bunch of Tarkov and pretend like it was for testing the system, but it did lead to some interesting weirdness happening. Initially, at 1440p with a mixture of medium settings, the game was running really well. We were getting about 100 frames per second, and it was pretty stable. I mean, for Escape from Tarkov, it was feeling really good. But then I fired my gun, and something terrible happened. Every time I fired my gun, there was this massive lag spike. And when I opened up full auto, the game would basically grind to a halt. I mean, look at that! How are you supposed to PvP sweatlords with that? I then spent ages playing around with various settings, but I couldn't fix the problem. I even changed a bunch of BIOS settings and reinstalled the game, but nothing fixed it. And this wasn't a problem on any of my other systems. I tried it on my editing PC with an Intel and an Nvidia GPU in it, which worked perfectly fine, and my PC at home with an AMD X3D CPU in it and a 9070 also had no problems. This was isolated to this PC. And on that mysterious bombshell, it brings me to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know down below what you think the problem could be. I'll post a short once I fix it to update you on the issue. Subscribe if you don't want to miss that. And until the next video, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.